Story 1. First, I think my English is pretty good for it being my second language, but I still may make mistakes. Second, this took place a couple years ago, so my memory and translations may not be exact, but you should get the general idea. Third, all conversations are translated to English, especially the ones between the director and me. Background and story: about 2 years ago, when I was in university, and this was before the virus, I worked as a tour guide in Oslo during summers. We would take groups out on a bus through the city, then get on a boat and continue the tour from there. When the group first formed, I would ask if there were any English speakers who didn't understand Norwegian. If there were, I would conduct the tour in Norwegian first, then give the English equivalent. If there weren't, I would do the whole thing in Norwegian, but also point out in English, we all speak English, right? That there was an audio system they could listen to in multiple languages. So Germans could hear it in German, Frenchmen could hear it in French, etc. I think there were 10 different languages to choose from. I eventually learned how to say each language we offered in their native language, and then motioned to the headphones and guide in front of them that said how to turn the audio to their preferred language. So, I asked, and a few people raised their hands. I don't recall if this lady was one of them. So, the tour started, and I would point out the sights and describe them in Norwegian, then English. However, as I was giving the Norwegian explanation, this lady would yell out, "English!" After a couple of times, I finally interrupted myself and said, "In a minute, please wait." Though I had already spoken English on the trip, including the opening talk. This continued through the entire tour. Though this was not a supper cruise, which we had in the evenings, we still had a wait staff that circulated around and got people snacks and drinks. They normally ask first in Norwegian what the people want, then switch to English, or in some cases, Swedish or German, until they learned which language went with which customer. When they got to this lady, she gave her order and then said, "Make the guide speak English. Me and my kids can't understand her." When they pointed out that I was speaking English after Norwegian, she said, "How do I know she's saying the same thing? She should just speak English the whole time." The next day, my director, I don't know the exact translation of his title, called me to his office before I began my first outing of the day and said that he had received a comment card about me not speaking English, and this had ruined the tour for her and her kids. He asked me if this was true, and I said, "No, I spoke both Norwegian and English on the trip," after I found out there were some non-Norwegian speakers. Since the tour for the day had not gone out yet, I got 2 servers, including the one who had served them, who came up and verified that I had spoken in both languages. My director just shook his head and tore up the comment card and told me to move on with my day. I wish I had gotten the chance to have a direct confrontation with this lady. Many people would stop and thank me or ask questions as they left the boat at the end of the tour, but she was not one of them. She just resorted to speaking bad about me on a comment card. I am not positive it was her, but the clues point to her. I may know English, but am not good with accents, so I couldn't tell if this lady was British, American, Australian, or something else. A Liverpool accent sounds the same to me as a Southern accent, which sounds like an Australian accent. But as long as I understand the words, it's okay. For those of you native English speakers who think, how can she not tell the difference between a Florida and a Boston accent? When it's not your native language, it's harder than you think. So that is the story of how I got into trouble for not speaking English in Norway. Again, I am sorry for grammar mistakes and thanks for reading. Story 2. This story is a bit old, so some of the details are not exact, but the overall story is accurate. I live in a very friendly community in Sydney, Australia. Almost everyone knows everyone else and gets along really well. We've been here for over 20 years now, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. Firstly, my wife is blind. She's a bit famous both for being a successful medical practitioner in the area and because she's done a lot of public speaking on blindness and has been featured in a few ads with her guide dog. Around 10 years ago, a new family moved in about 10 houses down from us. It consists of entitled mom and kids and poor dad. They obviously own the new franchise of a fairly well-known Australian desert chain, as they have the company van in their driveway whenever the hard-working dad happens to be home. I'm guessing he worked 13 15-hour days, 6-7 days a week. Poor guy. My wife likes to go for walks around the area with her guide dog. It's her main form of exercise and a way for her to bump into and chat with the members of the community who know and like her. At the time, our daughter was still a baby and in a pram, so my wife towed the pram behind her when she walked. That was actually the subject of one of the ads she was in. As she walks past this house, their dog runs out and attacks her guide dog. She was on her own, but fortunately another neighbor saw it and pulled the dog away while she went home. She tells me about it, but we think, well, they're new here and maybe one of the kids let the dog out. It's illegal to have a log-off leash anywhere in public in Sydney other than certain designated parks and beaches. A couple of days later, the same thing happened again. This time the dog ran all the way to our house from theirs and attacked her dog. Fortunately, I heard her scream, came out and dragged the dog off her. This time I went over to the neighbor's house to complain about their dog. "Hi there, I live up the road and your dog keeps attacking my wife's guide dog." "Why is this my problem?" the mom asks me. "You realize that it's illegal for your dog to be outside your yard off leash, don't you?" "My kids like playing out in the front with the dog." "Well, can you please get a gate? Your dog shouldn't be running loose on the road." "Maybe your wife shouldn't be out on the road." At this point, I realized this was a waste of time, so I returned home and we called the police. Remember, wife blind, well-known community member, and very strict dog laws. The police come over and we tell them the story. They take notes and say that her actions constitute assault on my wife, not just breaking the law by letting their dog out. They asked if we would like to press charges. We say, "No, but can you talk to her about not letting their dog out of the yard?" They agree and say they'll further warn her that if they get another complaint of this sort, the dog will be seized and euthanized. We also have strict laws about vicious animals. A few days later, my wife wants to go for another walk, but she's still a bit shaken by the 2 attacks, so she asks me to come with her. As we walk past the neighbor's house, the entitled kids are in the front yard. When they see us, they immediately lie on the ground and play dead. I notice the mom watching and ask what's going on. She says, "Well, if you are going to get our dog killed, you might as well get our kids killed as well." A few days later, our doorbell rings. I answer, and the man there introduces himself as the entitled neighbor's husband, the kind dad. He says that one of their direct neighbors saw what was going on with his wife, kids, and their dog and told him about it. He apologized profusely for what his wife and children have been doing and says it will never happen again. He seemed like a very nice, if exhausted, guy. I said that this is a close community and everyone likes to get along. The dad replied that he could see that. Flash forward to maybe 2 months later, and we notice that the house is up for sale, and we never see the company van in the driveway. It turns out that they were going through a divorce and had to sell the house after being there less than a year, and the business to split things up. I'm not saying the incident with my wife caused the divorce, but I'm sure it contributed to it. Unfortunately, he's working so hard all the time to let his entitled wife bring up 3 entitled kids. They are going to face some hard knocks in the future. Story 3. I'm quite new to this and don't have the best grammar since English is not my first language. Also, this is my first time posting here, so I don't know the format or anything like that and might make mistakes. I started my own business a few months back refurbishing personal computers and gaming consoles. I wish to make it my full-time job, but for now, it's just a way to make some extra money on the side. I have met some nice people and made new friends, but I have also dealt with my fair share of difficult customers. I suffer from depression, anxiety, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so when I have one of these encounters, I often end up venting to my best friend. She introduced me to this Reddit community and convinced me to share my experiences with everyone here. Unfortunately, my friend left for a new job in a different state a month ago. She's quite busy, and we don't really get to talk as much, so I figured I would take her advice and post here as a way to vent. This incident took place 2 days ago. The cast: original poster, me. Entitled Mom, the difficult mother in this story. Entitled Dad, the difficult father in this story. Spoiled brat, their child. Police Officer 1 and Police Officer 2, the officers who responded. Female Officer, the female police officer who handled the situation. It all started about 2 weeks ago when I posted a refurbished PlayStation 4 for sale. Someone messaged me asking all kinds of questions about the product. Everything seemed normal at first. He seemed interested, and I was excited since I had just posted it seconds ago. I had never sold something that fast before. Then came the message that completely killed my enthusiasm. Entitled Dad: okay, cool, we meet tomorrow then. I have $120 and need this for my son's birthday. Original poster: sorry, that's way too low. The price is $250. Entitled Dad: what? No, man, come on. I have $120 cash, help me out. I can't recall exactly what he said after that because I blocked him, and blocking people where I posted the listing deletes the chat logs. However, he basically started talking about how we were both Hispanic, how he had just arrived in the country, and how hard things were for him. He claimed I was treating him unfairly and that I should help out a fellow Hispanic. I told him I couldn't drop the price that much. Original poster: I can do $225. Entitled Dad: no, man, come on. I only have $120. Original poster: I already told you I can't do that, but I do have another one, an older 500GB model. It has a broken disk drive, but I can give you that for $120, no problem. Entitled Dad: what? No, I don't want a broken one. I want to get one for my son to play. I explained to him that the only thing broken was the disk drive and that he could still use it as an all-digital model. I had been planning on selling it for more after refurbishing it, but he seemed so desperate and wouldn't stop going on and on about how he needed to get this for his child because he had promised it for his birthday. I tried to offer him an alternative, but he refused, insisting on getting the $250 slim version instead. After shooting down his lowball offers a few more times, he eventually dropped it. I thought that would be the end of it. But oh, I was so wrong. Fast forward a week and a half later, and he messages me again. Entitled Dad: hey, is this still available? I can do $200. By this time, I had already sold the slim version, but had forgotten to take the listing down. Original poster: oh, sorry, no, I already sold that one, but I have another one I'm selling. Entitled Dad: ugh, no thanks, I don't want the broken one. Original poster: oh no, sir, it's not broken anymore. I just finished refurbishing it a few days ago. Entitled Dad: so it's working now. Does it have a warranty or something? How do I know you're not ripping me off and that it won't just break or something? Normally, I give people a week to return things if anything goes wrong. It's not a refund, but more of a free repair or exchange. I'm still new to refurbishing things and make mistakes. Sometimes maybe I don't tighten a screw enough or something like that. This had only happened once before, which is why I started offering this policy. However, that's not really important to the story. I reassured him and explained my policy. Entitled Dad: 1 week? Ugh, fine. Can we meet today? $120, right? Original poster: yeah, I get off work soon and will be home in a few hours. But no, it's going to be $200, not $120. Entitled Dad: what? You said $120 before. Original poster: yeah, that was before it was refurbished. Now it's $200. Entitled Dad: this is a rip-off. It was used and broken. It should be $120. Original poster: sorry, but no. It's as good as new, fully refurbished. If you're not interested, that's fine. I have other buyers. After about 30 minutes, he messaged me again. Entitled Dad. Okay, sorry. We meet today? Where are you? Original poster. Yeah, sure. I confirmed the price with him again and gave him my address. He said he would be there in about 20 minutes. I had just gotten home and was exhausted after working a double shift. I explained this to him and told him I would wait, but he needed to be on time. 1 hour later, I messaged him, no response. I tried again after 10 minutes, still nothing. I was so tired that I just said, forget it, and went to bed. I woke up the next day to find over 40 messages on my phone, all from Entitled Dad. He had shown up 4 hours after I had fallen asleep. I reminded him of what I had told him before and let him know that today was my day off, so we could meet again. He agreed, but not before making a fuss about how I hadn't been awake to meet him, even though he had arrived 4.5 hours late. I brushed it off, and he said he would be there in 1 hour. I took a shower and got dressed. Sure enough, 1 hour later, he arrived with Entitled Mom and Spoiled Brat in tow. Everything was fine at first. I showed them the system, let them test it, and began boxing it up for them. That's when he handed me a fat stack of cash, mostly $1 bills. I started counting it as they made their way to the car. Then, I stopped them. Original poster. Sir, this is only $117. The price is $200. You're still short. Entitled Mom glared at me. Spoiled Brat looked up at them with a face that I can only describe as the mommy, I want this now expression. Entitled Dad tossed the box into the back seat of his car and told his son to get in as I walked up to them. Entitled Dad, we agreed on $120. You're trying to raise the price on me? Original poster. No, sir. We agreed on $200. You tried to offer $120 before, but I told you multiple times that the price was $200 after I refurbished it. Entitled Dad? No, you said $120. I drove all the way here, and you're trying to scam me now. I was already exhausted from dealing with him, so I just sighed and started pulling the PlayStation box out of their car. But the moment I touched it, Entitled Mom lost it. Entitled Mom, don't touch my son's gift. You gave it to us. It's ours. She grabbed my arm and tried to yank me back, but I pulled away. That's when Spoiled Brat started screaming. Spoiled Brat, Mommy, I want it. It's mine. It's Minnie. I took the box out of the car and held it against my chest. Original poster. No, ma'am. You have not paid for it, so it is not yours. Entitled Mom stepped up to me, screaming in my face, while Entitled Dad tried to grab the box from my hands. Entitled Mom, you're a scammer. You said $120. You can't do this to us. My son wants it. Just give it to him. By this time, my neighbors were watching from their porches. I was done being nice. Original poster. I don't care what your son wants. The price was $200, and you only gave me $117. Now leave before I call the police. Entitled Dad. You can't do that. I'll call them first. I'll tell them you're trying to scam me. I was about to go inside and call when Entitled Dad lunged at me, grabbing the box again. I shoved him off, and he stumbled back. And that's when Entitled Mom slapped me. Yep, she straight up slapped me across the face. My ears were ringing, my face was stinging, and for a second, I was too shocked to react. That's when 2 police officers pulled up. Apparently, one of my neighbors had already called them when they saw what was happening. Female officer and police officer 2 stepped out and immediately separated us. Female officer, what's going on here? Before I could say a word, Entitled Mom ran up to her, sobbing. Entitled Mom, oh, thank God, officer, he's trying to scam us. We paid for the PlayStation, and now he's taking it back. He hit me. I blinked. I hit her. Original poster. What? She slapped me? And they never paid me the full price. Police officer 2. Okay, let's all calm down. Female officer. Sir, do you have proof of payment? Entitled Dad pulled out his stack of 1s and 5s and shoved it at her. Entitled Dad, see? We paid him. He's lying. I pulled out my phone and showed them the text messages. The moment the officers read the multiple times I stated the price was $200, the mood changed. Female officer turned to Entitled Dad. Female officer, sir, you're short $83. Entitled Dad, no, he said $120. She scrolled through the text again. Female officer, no, sir. He clearly said $200, several times. Entitled Mom, but it's for our son's birthday. You can't do this, it's his present. At this point, Spoiled Brat was on the ground, kicking and screaming. Spoiled Brat, Mommy, I want it, I want it. The officers looked at each other, clearly done with this nonsense. Police officer 2. Ma'am, sir, if you can't pay the full amount, you need to return the PlayStation and leave. Entitled Dad, this is a scam. Entitled Mom, no, he promised it to us. Then, female officer looked at me. Female officer, you said she slapped you. I nodded, and my neighbor called out from her porch. Neighbor, I saw it. That woman slapped him first. Female officer, all right, ma'am, turn around. And that's when Entitled Mom started screaming. They arrested her for assault. Entitled Dad was still yelling when they put her in the car, but he wasn't going to do anything without her backing him up. Eventually, he grabbed his crying kid and drove off. The officers apologized to me for the trouble, and my neighbor gave them her security camera footage just in case. A few hours later, I got another message. From Entitled Dad. Entitled Dad, you happy now? You got my wife arrested. Hope you're proud of yourself. I just blocked him. Sold the PlayStation the next day for full price. Story 4. So for anyone who has read my last post, you are aware I have worked in childcare for my childcare course. Now for anyone who works in childcare, you should know how hard it is to deal with specific difficult parents. It's like a breeding ground of difficult parents. A few years ago, I used to work in a private nursery, also known as preschool for the people who don't know what a nursery is. Now, since it's a private nursery, you can expect that lots of the parents are relatively wealthy, around middle-class wealthy, but some are working class. The entitled father is super wealthy, way more wealthy than any of the other parents. He would often ride his silver Lamborghini, and when he's too lazy, he rides an Uber. He would wear lots of branded products like Gucci and wear a really expensive watch that he never ever uses. He only wears it to look good. Of course, his daughter, whom I'll name Princess, also wears branded clothing as well. From her clothes to her toys, everything was extremely expensive. Now, with all this wealth, it should be easy to pay for expensive food, right? Wrong. This entitled father thought otherwise. On her first day in nursery, I informed the entitled father how she was, what she did, and what she ate. It's mandatory for us to inform the parents about their children's progress for the day. The second I finished informing him what she ate, he quickly snapped at me with questions. It isn't a problem asking questions regarding their children, but it was the demands that he made that made it difficult. Is the food organic? No. Have you not been informed about this during your tour in the nursery? Shut up, I know. Me, shocked. Oh, sorry. Is the food vegan? Oh, did you inform us when you were filling out the forms? I want to note that he did not specify about them being vegan when filling out the forms, because in the forms the parents have to tell the nursery if the child has allergies or for religious reasons cannot eat specific things, etc. He gasped and said, "You fed her non-vegan food? Are you trying to poison my princess with your animal cruelty food?" Oh, I'm sorry, but we weren't informed about that. Where is the manager? He shouted at me. He then stormed off to the office to berate the manager. I was too curious to watch this, so I sneaked around the corner and watched from afar. Your employees dare feed my precious daughter toxic food. I'm sorry, but what toxic food are you talking about, and which employee? You guys fed my baby spaghetti that contained meatballs. It wasn't even organic. The racial slur girl told me. I'm used to getting called a racial slur, so it doesn't affect me as much anymore. Well, if you do not like the food we provide, how about providing a packed lunch for the princess? We also have substitutes for vegans, but it won't be organic, unfortunately. The manager fires back. How dare you try to make me do your job for you? You guys are responsible for feeding my princess organic and vegan food. I'm richer than any of these people in this place, and I'm the main reason why this nursery is still alive, so you better give my princess the best treatment. The private nursery was the only private nursery in the area, and not a lot of children are in the nursery since mainly working-class people live in the area and put their children into public nursery schools. So the manager noticed me peeking around the corner, and without me noticing, a few others were watching as well. The manager closed the door, so unfortunately I couldn't hear what happened next. But all I knew was that the princess still came to the nursery, and we started substituting her food for vegan food, but unfortunately not organic. Princess didn't like the fact she was eating yucky food and threw a tantrum. Later, the entitled dad decided that they won't be vegan anymore since the princess was crying to eat some meat, and he hates to see his princess cry. The worst part is that this wasn't the worst entitled behavior they expressed. The worst was something that still angers me today. One day during the summer, it was sports day. We rented out a nice indoor hall that had air conditioning so the children should be nice and cool as they exercise. Now amongst the children, there's this sweet bundle of joy. We will call him Ryan. Now Ryan is a special needs child because he is autistic and blind. Ryan has a stuffed rabbit named Robbie. Ryan loves Robbie because to Ryan, Robbie is his best friend and his world. He cannot sleep, eat, or poop without Robbie holding his hand. During the day, Ryan wanted to join the egg and spoon race because his favorite food is eggs. Ryan left Robbie on his blanket and joined the race with the help of his assigned assistant. When he got back, he won second place. Robbie was gone. Ryan panicked and began to have a breakdown. He started crying how lonely he is and how dark it is without Robbie with him. The staff went on a frantic search for Robbie until finally we noticed Princess was holding him. "Princess, can I have the toy back, please?" the staff asked her. "No, I found it, and it is mine." "This belonged to Ryan." "No, it's mine." Princess then began to cry that the stuffed rabbit was hers because she found it first. Entitled dad noticed her cry and rushed over with a red twisted face that almost resembled an angry bull. "What did you do to my princess?" The staff tried telling him what happened, but he of course cut them off. "I'm going to get you fired for this, just you wait." The manager noticed the commotion and asked what was going on. The dad began a huge rant on the manager on how he wanted the staff to be fired for making the princess cry. After a long rant, the manager quickly rushed over to understand the situation and being informed about what was going on. The manager calmly tried to explain it to the dad and asked for Robbie, the stuffed rabbit, back. The dad did not like what she said and started practically screaming at the manager. "It belongs to the princess. How dare you demand to take it from her?" The manager sighed because she's used to dealing with people like him, so she asked him to come outside the hall to have a private chat. I don't know exactly what she said exactly, but she told me afterwards that she basically said to stop the entitled behavior. The dad did not like that, but the manager kept cutting him off so that she could get some words in and basically told him that his behavior and his daughter were unacceptable, and if he kept this up, then they would have to leave the nursery. The next thing we knew, the dad rushed back in the hall, grabbed his stuff, cursed at us, then marched away with his princess, and we never saw them again. The manager got Robbie back from the princess and returned it to Ryan, who finally stopped crying and hugged Robbie as tightly as he could with a bright, happy smile. Story 5. A little backstory. Dad, 64 years old man, walks with cane, and Mom, an entitled witch, got a divorce about 20 years ago. One issue between them was that Mom said, "Why does anyone have to be responsible? Why do we have to live by your grandmother's rules? Pick up after yourself. You made the mess, clean it up. You did the crime, you serve the time. Kevin, the son, works in a small city northeast of Tulsa as a plate runner at the pound of ground. In 2017, Dad and I, 61-year-old female in a wheelchair, lost everything in an explosion and fire. We didn't have much, so we rented a storage unit. Didn't have the money to live anywhere in Big D. We were homeless for 18 months. We reached out to his son, and he drove down to pick us up and brought everything to his house. Kevin's house is in the small town of Well of Black. The smell upon arrival was unbearable, and we had no idea what it was. It was late, and I had to use the restroom. Have you ever seen the inside of a white toilet be black? My husband had to go buy an Arab to sleep on. We had bugs on us all night. Kevin has 2 black cats. The older one has health problems, is not fixed, and is mean. The younger one is sweet and is fixed. A couple of days after we arrived, we discovered where the smells and the bugs were coming from: Kevin's room. We asked Kevin nicely to please start bringing the trash out of his room. It has been building up since right after he moved in sometime in October or November of 2020. We were told he would. Never happened. The backyard had piles of branches and limbs that had come down in storms. Kevin was too cheap to have it all hauled off. Got Dad to break it all up to put in garbage bags. Dad cleaned the kitchen and bathroom. There was no refrigerator. Finally convinced Kevin that a refrigerator was needed. Found one on sale at the lower store. He had the money to buy it when he went in, and the clerk didn't honor the ad. He didn't ask to speak to the manager, and he left. I called the store to no avail, so I called the corporate, got an even better price. Kevin asked Dad to split the cost, and he would pay him back. Kevin never said thanks. Dad paid half the house payment and half the utilities from March to July. During this time, every month Kevin would borrow money, again with the "I'll pay you back." Once the piles of branches are gone, the grass needs cutting, no lawn mower. Kevin and his dad went to town to buy one, found one, it's electric, and again Kevin asked Dad to help out with more money. Dad is the only one to ever mow the grass. You should see a man with a cane mowing the grass. It is so funny and a little sad. Kevin will never mow. We told Kevin that his cats needed food and litter. We told him for 2 months. Never bought any. In late June, Kevin was at work, and someone had not gotten the sweet tea made. When a customer ordered sweet tea and he discovered it was empty, he blew up. Don't know exactly how bad he blew, but Kevin stormed out and left in his car. The managers at the pound of ground called the cops because they feared for his mental health. A little bit later, officers showed up at home, asking if he was here or if we knew where he was. We didn't, and they told us about the incident at work. About 2 hours later, one of the officers called and said other officers had found him, and he said he would be home in a couple of hours. He got home about 12 hours later drunk as a skunk. The next day he was up early and started out the door. Dad asked if he was going to work. Kevin said, "Screw them." About 3 hours later, a lady knocked on the door saying that Kevin was in the grass at the corner needing water. Dad grabbed a bottle and his cane and took it to him. Dad asked where the car was and was told he had a little accident. He came back to the house and called government insurance because Kevin needed a tow. Note, he didn't report an accident. The car was towed home. Then he called the insurance again and wanted his car replaced. He was asked if there had been an accident. He said it broke. They told him no. He screamed and hollered, but the insurance said no. They dropped him as a client. The car he ran into the bridge has a cracked cross member on the frame, crushed radiator, and all the airbags deployed. It had permanent license plates from his previous state. He told me he was going to use the plates on his next car. Note, aren't the plates registered to the car and not the driver? Kevin had to call people to get to and from work. He came in one day with a male cat, who is not fixed. Dad pointed out that if the older cat got pregnant at her age, it might kill her. Kevin said, "If she dies, she dies." He raised her from a kitten. Kevin left on the 23rd of July and hasn't been seen or heard from since. In the second week of August, his older cat died. We had no way to let him know. His phone wasn't working. The landlord told us today that Kevin let the natural gas get shut off and will let the electric and water get turned off because he wants to throw his dad and me on the street. Never told us. Entitled people don't like to be confronted about their behavior and have a grown-up conversation. We don't have a car, nowhere to go, and when the electricity and water go out, Dad will have to go to the hospital. He has breathing problems when it gets too hot.